Hey everybody, it's Mike from the Mike Wagner Show, powered by SoundCloud Studios, brought to you by our official sponsor, the Mike Wagner Show, international warring author Mia Molson's The Missing, available on Amazon in paperback and ebook, coming soon to Missing 2 by Mia Molson's Zia on Amazon. Double the suspense, double the fun. Check it out on Amazon. Also brought to you by Illuminatically, Think Tank of the Future. The Sweet Psalmist by Serena Wagner, based on the life of King David, now available on Amazon. Keyword Sweet Psalmist Serena Wagner and High Time Music. Check out the latest at hightimemusic.com. We're here, a terrific gentleman who is an author, writer, and a student of history from Atlanta, Georgia, with numerous works in fiction, nonfiction, short and long, articles, blogs, and more. He focuses on historical fiction, Southern literary fiction, crime fiction, true crime, and rigorous research, which he was previously a scientist. And his first book is about a blockbuster story of a cold case from the annals of Atlanta history about the death of a prominent downtown businessman. And the second takes place in 1963 in Atlanta, where in adolescent girls, three of them go missing and a killer is on the loose. We'll talk about what the two books are. Live, ladies and gentlemen, plus twos in beautiful downtown Atlanta, the amazing author, writer, and student of history with two books, Dead Beckoning and The Devil You Know. Ladies and gentlemen, the multi-talented Mike Cobb. Mike, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thanks for joining us today.
It's nice to be here. Thank you so much.
Well, it's great to have you on board, Mike. You're an author, writer, and student of history from Atlanta, Georgia. You have numerous works in fiction, nonfiction, short, long articles, blogs, and more. You have a focus on historical fiction, Southern literary fiction, crime fiction, true crime, rigorous research. You used to be a scientist. Your first book is about a blockbuster story of a cold case from the annals of Atlanta history about the death of a prominent downtown businessman in 1896. And your second book takes place in 1963 in Atlanta, where three adolescent girls go missing and a killer's on the loose, and a young man who is infatuating one of the girls, boy, getting caught in the drama later, just finds out who it is. Two books, Dead Becking and The Devil You Know. And before getting on, Mike, tell us how I first got started.
How I got started. Okay, well, I've been writing my entire life. I was telling somebody the other day, I think the first fiction I ever wrote was, I think I was probably 5 or 6 years old.
Wow.
And I've just continued to write. I did not seriously begin writing to publish until I guess about 8 years ago. Um, I spent years researching Dead Beckoning. But I retired about 2.5, almost 3 years ago. And so now I spend almost all my time writing. I spent much of my career as a scientist. And to be a good scientist, you have to have an insatiable curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think to be a good fiction writer, you have to be a very curious person and very observant. And so once I retired, I said, okay, I got a lot of time on my hands now. I'm going to pursue my three passions, those passions being research, history, and writing. And that's what I do.
Mm-hmm. Also, three that I like as well too. And what type of scientific work did you do?
Well, I have a PhD in actually quantum chemistry.
Oh, wow.
Um, I've been fascinated with science for most of my life. And I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do when I got out of graduate school. But when I got my PhD, I went to work in the chemical industry, working as a spectroscopist, and then sort of moved into polymers, coatings and polymers. And that's what I've spent most of my chemical career doing. I started a consulting practice in '98 and merged with another company in 2011. But much of what I've done over the years is help companies sort of find that sweet spot between science and business.
Hmm. Okay.
And yeah, so
I
that's
was more thinking about science, business, and the chemical industry, petroleum, and all that too. It just makes you think of petroleum and some of the polymers and just about everything else.
yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Um,
but you were going to say something else, or
no, just that I did a lot of writing uh, vocationally or professionally but most of the writing I did, all the writing I did was obviously nonfiction, and most of it was highly technical.
Hmm.
So it's a pleasure to now spend my time writing fiction, mainly fiction, some nonfiction, but writing non-technical stuff, if you will. I wrote my share of papers and things like that when I was working in the science field.
Okay. And what got you interested in writing fiction? What was that one moment for you?
Gosh, well, it would have to go back. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, I started writing when I was a kid. I mean, I've got files of things I've written over the years. Um, I was an avid reader. I love reading, and I always have. I've loved reading fiction. I've got a bunch of favorite authors, many of whom I have loved since I was a, a preteen. So I think it was the love of reading and my curiosity, which has gotten me in a little bit of trouble over the years. Um, I think those two things probably instilled a love of writing fiction in me more than anything else.
Okay. And who are some
Yeah.
of your favorite authors and writers growing up?
Oh my gosh. So going way back, I'm a big fan of Flannery O'Connor. And there are threads of Flannery O'Connor's writing, if you will, her style and subject matter in my books, especially in The Devil You Knew. Much of The Devil You Knew, the fictionalized part of The Devil You Knew, was inspired actually by some of Flannery O'Connor's work. So she's has been important in my life as a writer. In terms of more contemporary writers, I love Lou Berney. Um, for example, November Road. I love Amor Towles. I love his historical fiction. Um, there are actually a couple of local writers here, one of whom is has written an endorsement for my third book, which is coming out in January.
Oh, nice.
His name
Okay.
is Robert Gwaltney. He wrote a book called The Cicada Tree, and he was actually the Georgia Author of the Year. Um, and on the nonfiction side, I also am inspired by Eric Larson. The For those who have read Dead Beckoning, they will probably recognize some parallels or similarities, if you will. Totally different stories, but similarities, if you will, between Dead Beckoning and Devil in the White City. Even though Devil in the White City is nonfiction, it's still written sort of in a fiction style.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, okay, that's very interesting as well. We'll talk more about Debt Beckoning along with the Devil You Know with author Mike Cobb. But first, listen to the Mike Wagner Show at themikewagnershow.com. It's powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. Look at a professional website without breaking your budget. Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today 1-800-303-3960. It's 1-800-303-3960 or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show, get 20% off your first project. Sonic Web Studios, take your image to the next level. Also, time to give official shout out to our official sponsor of the Mike Wagner Show, international warring author Mia Molson-Zia. If you love fast-paced mysteries, you'll love Missing by Mia Molson-Zia, available on Amazon paperback and ebook. Missing is fast-paced and intriguing with an unforgettable twist. Takes place in 4 countries, 2 strangers, one target, where truth is illusion and those who love be the first go missing. It's available on Amazon in paperback and ebook. Missing by Mia Molson has got great reviews. And Evil Love and endorsed by Howard celebrities, including Joanna Cassidy, Forbes Riley, and many others. So grab your copy today for it goes Missing by Mia Molson, available on Amazon. Also, the Mike Wagner Show is brought to you by Illumniptical, think tank of the future, brings scientists and engineers together from all over the world, creating a method to construct a renewable generator. This unique product operates on a closed loop system, generating more energy internally that needs to function. The extra electricity can be used to run everything from homes, power grids, phones, laptops, and more. This power source is renewable, highly scalable, and self-regenerating. Visit facebook.com/elumniptical. That's ELLUMENIPTICAL today. Also, Mike Wagner Show is brought to you by Sweet Psalms by Serena Wagner, based on the life of King David and the Psalms he wrote as the time of shepherd started, plus his complicated and turbulent relationship with King Saul. His story of love, betrayal, repentance, hope, and more. Check out the Sweet Psalmist by Serena Wagner on Amazon. Keyword Sweet Psalmist Serena Wagner. Also brought to you by High 10 Music, featuring the smash hit Baby Come Back. New music coming soon. Check it out at high10music.com. Also, support the Mike Wagner Show on Anchor FM, PayPal, and the MikeWagnerShow.com. You can take us with you on any mobile device. Subscribe to us on over 40 podcast platforms, heard in 100 countries, Spreaker, Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and more. And for great gift ideas, go to Amazon.com. Check out the Mike Wagner Show podcast. T-shirts, pop sockets, throw pillows, tote bags, hoodies. Makes great gifts 24/7. Go to Amazon.com. Check out the Mike Wagner Show podcast. And for more great gift ideas, go to Amazon.com/me and Cynthia for great books, merchandise, and more. Check it out today. We're here with the amazing author, writer, and student of history from Atlanta, Mike Cobb, here on the Mike Wagner Show. Let's talk about the first book, Beckoning. As you had compared it, you had people talk about it. It's your first book about blockbuster story of a cold case from the annals of Atlanta history about the death of a prominent downtown businessman in 1896. I mean, this just goes way back. So how'd you get interested in that one?
So I was actually I was actually doing research for another book about a World's Fair that it took place in Atlanta in 1895. And I had spent a lot of time doing research for that book. And I was going through newspaper articles and discovered this murder.
Mm.
And I started sort of fast forwarding and reading about the murder, and I discovered at some point along the way that it was an unsolved murder.
Oh, wow.
So it is still, to this day, a cold case.
Mm.
I fictionalized it. I spent, as I mentioned earlier, I spent several years doing research for the book. So the gist of the story is a prominent businessman who was on his way to work one morning was gunned down execution style. The police had several suspects. They actually brought in a couple of suspects that really they had no conclusive evidence against them, but they tried to frame them, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
A police captain, who is really the protagonist of the story, sets out to find the killer of this businessman. The book is it's full of it's rich with a lot of historical detail regarding late 19th century Atlanta and the South in general.
Mm-hmm.
It's also full of twists and turns and red herrings to a final ending. And as I said, I fictionalized it. There was one suspect who went missing. And back then, they had no idea where he ended up. Well, I had the benefit of access to census reports and things like that they didn't have, and I actually found him.
Oh, really?
And I decided based on the research I did that he was the killer. And so, I mean, you'd have to read the book to know all the details and to know who it was. But I loved writing the book because I was able to combine that all of that historical detail with a gripping crime story with a lot of, as I said, a lot of twists and turns and red herrings, and a sort of a twist within a twist within a twist at the end, if you will.
Okay. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
thinking about this Atlanta businessman that got shut down by a single gunshot. Was he what was his character like? Was he like a good ethical? Was he have some questionability, or was he like, lie, cheat, everything like that, or maybe just in debt? What was his character like? And what do you think, someone could go out and kill him like that?
So, without going into too much detail, because I don't want to give too much away,
No, that's fine. We
uh,
just want to get an idea. It's like,
yeah,
is he
yeah,
a
yeah,
good guy,
yeah.
bad guy, corrupt, or just, did they get the wrong guy or something?
So he was a good guy. I will tell you that he had been accused of basically being a fence for stolen goods, um, and had been, had sort of gotten crosswise from the with the Atlanta police because of that. I will tell you though, based upon the research that I have done about him, I think that he may very well have innocently bought stolen goods,
Mm,
but I think he was framed, first of all. Um, and there's another element of the story that I think is pretty compelling because it's also an element of my second book, and that is that the police were very corrupt. Okay.
hmm
The police commissioners were very extremely corrupt, and they basically handpicked the detectives on the Atlanta police force. They handpicked the officers on the Atlanta police force. And based on, and again, I don't want to give too much away, but based on the research that I did, one of the detectives, who is a prominent character in the book, I think was probably in cahoots with the killer.
Okay. And I was also thinking about the corruption, the deceit, the cheat that goes on in the Atlanta police force, city council, and everything like that. How much of a degree do you think all that corruption, deceit, cheating, and everything like that, compared to most cities, was on a low scale, was just beginning, was it just like everybody else, or was just as high as New York or Boston?
I think it was probably as high. You have to consider that in 1895, the Atlanta police force was pretty much a ragtag assemblage of people with very poorly trained, okay, policemen. Most of them actually came from the wrong side of the tracks. They were poorly paid, so they were poorly trained, they were poorly paid, and they were prime candidates for the city council and the police commissioners to basically have them in their pockets and control them. And that's exactly what happened. Um, there was corruption all over. There was certainly corruption among the police in New York and Chicago in the late 19th century. I suspect that on a smaller scale, it was as bad as or worse than some of those bigger cities because those cities, at least the police forces had begun to be a little more professional. And the police force in Atlanta was still very ragtag, and it was pretty much the Wild West. Okay,
hmm Or
it was
the
just
Wild South, you would call it too.
or the
So
Wild South. Exactly, exactly.
well, and plus, that's a segues into the second book, The Devil We'll talk about with Mike Cobb in just 1 minute. You're listening to The Mike Wagner Show at themikewagnershow.com, powered by Soundclap Studios, brought to you by official sponsor of The Mike Wagner Show, international warring author Mia Molson's Missing. Also brought to you by Illumnifically, Think Tank of the Future, The Sweet Psalmist by Serena Wagner, based on the life of King David on Amazon, and High Time Music. Check out the latest at hightimemusic.com. We'll be back with the multi-talent author from Atlanta, Mike Cobb, after this timeout. We're back with author Mike Cobb from Atlanta with Dead Beckoning and the Devil You Know here on the Mike Wagner Show. We already talked about Dead Beckoning. Now this translates into The Devil You Know, which is your second new book, taking place in 1963 in Atlanta, just kind of jumping forward, where three adolescent girls go missing and a killer is on the loose with a young man being infatuated with one of them and trying to get caught up in the drama and later sets aside the killer. And tell us more about that.
Okay, so I will tell you, I loved writing both books. One of the reasons, though, that I loved writing The Devil You Knew is the first half of it, as you said, takes place in 1963. And there's a big coming of age element. Think Stand By Me, okay? Some
Hmm.
people have actually compared the first half of the book to Stand By Me. Um, there's a lot of it's certainly not a roman à clef, or it's certainly not about my life, but my childhood growing up about the same age as the main character in Atlanta, certainly my experiences imparted a lot of color, if you will, to the book and influenced the writing of the first half of the book. So basically, yes, it's about a little boy named Billy Tarwater. He's 11 years old. He's infatuated with this 14-year-old girl who doesn't want to have anything to do with him. You know, I mean, that's the age where 3 years makes a huge difference, right?
Hmm.
Between a boy and a girl. So she doesn't want to have anything to do with him, but he's infatuated with her. And you know, she's somewhat flirtatious. And anyway, these girls go missing. One of the girls who goes missing is this girl that he's infatuated with, and he's devastated by what happens to these girls. Fast forward to 1980, he is now an up and coming newspaper man. He sets out to do three things: to avenge what happened to the girls, to basically free an innocent black man who was framed and sent to a terrible, terrible prison in Georgia,
Hmm.
and find the true killer. Okay.
Okay.
So that's what the second half of the first half of the story is about: what happened to these girls and how it impacted this little boy. The second half of the story is the boy who is now grown up, his efforts to crack the case, if you will, and free this innocent man from prison.
Mhm. What do you think was the motive for him to go out and set his sight for a girl he was in love with or infatuated with at 14, like 17 years early? Was it like something that just reminded him of it, or was it like something else? Like what else that might have triggered him to go out and pursue the story of trying to get the killer?
Well, so one thing is, when he was a little boy, he knew the black man who was framed, okay, and was pretty convinced back then that the black man hadn't done it, okay? Now, as is often the case, he went off and, you know, he went to college, and you know, he had other things in his life sort of were more important
Mm-hmm.
until he became a newspaper man. And that's when he realized, you know, I've never been able to let this go. Okay. And I've got to do the right thing and leverage my investigating skills and things like that I have honed as a newspaper man, and do whatever I can to crack the case, find the killer, and free this innocent man.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like one of those cold cases that finally get solved years later and everything like that. And what do you want the readers to get from both the books, Dead Beckoning and The Devil You Knew?
Well, I want them to enjoy the books, but I also want them to appreciate the themes of um, corruption among people in positions of power,
Hmm.
because that also plays a role in The Devil You Knew. I want them to enjoy the rich history that's that's embodied in both of the books, which I think just enhances the fiction. Okay. And I want them to walk away thinking, well, you know, what else could be? One of the things I love about the way I write is I don't like tying everything up in a neat bow at the end. I will tell you that both books end with some unanswered questions. And those are the kinds of things I like to read, and they're the kinds of things I like to write. So I hope that a reader will walk away from these books thinking, I wonder, I wonder what could be. I wonder what happened here. Um, I don't want
Or
them to
what could have
walk
been?
away
Yes. Hmm.
saying, okay, everything's settled now and it's done, I can put a little nice tie a bow on it and it's complete.
Okay. And where can we find all your books at, Mike?
Well, you can certainly find them on Amazon.com. You can find them on BarnesandNoble.com. They are in some select bookstores, but I'll tell you, the bookstores they're in are sort of down in my area. So they're in a couple of Barnes and Nobles. They're in a fair number of independent bookstores. You could also go to any bookstore, and any bookstore can order the book, either book.
Okay.
I will tell you that I'm also working on, I will, on January 6th, we are releasing a sequel to The Devil You Knew called You Will Know Me by My Deeds. I just, all the final um, proofs and everything are headed to my publisher tomorrow morning. Um, so that book will also be available on Amazon and Barnes and Noble and through independent bookstores.
Okay, well, certainly check that out as well with author Mike Cobb of Debt Beckoning and Devil You Knew here on the Mike Wagner Show. And besides talking about the upcoming books and your third release and everything else, what else can we expect from you 2025 and beyond besides new works from you?
Well, there is one other work that I will tell you about. Okay, so You'll Know Me by My Deeds is coming out January 6th. I also am putting the finishing touches on a novella. By the way, let me back up for a minute. I will tell you that You Will Know Me by My Deeds is based largely on the Atlanta child murders that occurred in 1979 through 1981 that most people are aware of.
Oh, that was like a serial killer. They're dropping one by one. I remember that.
Yes, a man was convicted. He is doing time now. I am convinced, based on the research that I've done, that he may be guilty of killing some of the children, but not all of them. He was never convicted of killing one child. He was convicted of killing two adults. But the authorities basically closed the case after that. And for all practical purposes, he was convicted by the press and by the public for killing all the children. I've done extensive research and as I said, I'm convinced that he didn't kill all of the children. There was another factor at play that involves some racial white supremacist factions in Atlanta. Again, I don't want to give too much away, but the book basically is about the Billy Tarwater, who was the main character in The Devil You Knew,
Hmm.
is also one of the main characters in You Will Know Me by My Deeds. And he sets out in You Will Know Me by My Deeds to basically investigate this story that he's discovered about this other group that may be behind some or all of the Atlanta child murders. And I'll just leave it at that.
That's a really good idea as well, too. So be on the lookout from Arthur Mike Cobb for those books. And just a couple more things. Who do you consider biggest influence in your career?
I'm sorry, what is my biggest influence
Yeah, who is your biggest influence in your career?
in my career? Okay, that's an easy question to answer. My first book is dedicated to a woman named Dorothy Barker, who was my sixth grade teacher.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I was actually living in Jacksonville, Florida at the time. I spent 3 years, sixth, seventh, and eighth grade in Jacksonville, and then we moved back to Atlanta. When I first found out that she was going to be my teacher, I was scared to death of her.
Oh.
She was, pardon my language, but she was a hard ass.
Are all the
And
teachers these days? Oh, wait, that was like 10, 20 years ago. I forgot about that.
yeah, so I'm 71. Okay. So this was in the mid 60s. And I think teachers back then probably had a lot more leeway to do things that they can't do today. I will tell you that she washed my mouth out with soap once, which was an experience. Uh, but she had a huge impact on me, and I I think about her all the time. I think about the fact that I don't think that I would be the writer that I am today, and I don't think that I would be the person, the human being that I am today if it had not been for her influence.
At least clean words come out that mouth washing, soap and
That's
everything
right.
like that. I think that's the one punishment that should be brought back to schools. Like, here's a way to clean up for you.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, not
Hey,
this fruit.
I can remember that experience. I can remember it in excruciating detail as if it happened yesterday.
Oh, we can't wait for that version. Can't wait. And what's the
Yeah.
best advice you can give to anybody at this point?
To writers
To anybody
or
in general.
to anybody, pursue your passion and don't let anything get in the way of pursuing your passion. And don't let anybody tell you that you you can't do it. A famous, and I can't remember who it was now, but a women's rights activist, I think way back in time, said something like, "Don't let anybody interrupt you from doing what they said you can't do,
Mm,
or
that's
don't
a
let
good
anybody
quote.
get in the way of your doing what they said you can't do," or something like that, which I think
Mhm,
is really important. I mean, pursue your passion.
mhm,
I will tell you that I grew up in a time when I saw so many people um, graduating from high school and pursuing careers that they weren't passionate about, but pursuing careers that they thought would make them a lot of money. And they spent their entire, their adult lives and much of their waking hours doing things they weren't passionate about.
mhm.
And
Or
at some point along the way, as they got older, they realized, you know what? I've spent all of these years doing something that was unfulfilling. Okay, I made a lot of money, so what? I'm not saying money's not important, but follow your passion.
mhm. And I've heard a lot of horror stories too about, hey, get into this field. This makes money. Hey, get in. This is a hot trend. And then 20, 10, 20 years later, it's like they regret it. I totally understand that. So still hold
Yeah,
true today. So I got to say that. So
yeah.
we're with the amazing author Mike Cobb on the Mike Wagner Show of Debt Beckoning and the W New. Mike, a very big thank you for your time. You've been absolutely fantastic. Looking forward to having you again soon. Keep us up to date. Keep in touch. Love to have you back. And what's your website? How do people contact you? Where can people purchase or check out your books?
Well, my website is Mike Cobb Writer, MikeCobbWriter.com, Writer. So certainly go to my website. I'm also active on Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram, and I have a YouTube channel. And there are a couple of trailers, by the way, on the YouTube. There are trailers on my website and on the YouTube channel for my first two books, and there will be a trailer, hopefully in the not too distant future, for the book that's coming out January 6th. So check those out. And yeah, and again, Amazon.com, my books are available there. You can also go on Goodreads and read some of the reviews of my two books that are out now. And yeah,
Okay, sounds
I
great. And what's your website again?
it's Mike Cobb, Mikecobb, writer, Writer, all one character string.com.
We'll certainly check that out today. Once again, Mike, a very big thank you for your time. You've been absolutely fantastic. Learned a lot. Looking forward to having you soon. Keep us up to date. Keep in touch. We'd love to have you back. We wish all the best. And Mike, you definitely have a great future ahead of you.
Thank you so much, Mike. This has been great.